We are ready.
All right, let's call this Finance Committee of the city in December 17th to order. And first one is sales tax. So how are we doing?
Great. Thank you, Finance Committee. This is the last meeting of the 2019 year, and so we're going to look at our data through November, which is all promising and positive for both sales tax and rate. Oh, here. You can take one too.
Those reports are all lies.
I'm not asking for anything. So through November, we've collected $4.9 million. Again, we budgeted $5,060,000 for 2019. We're just roughly $150,000 short of our target goal for 2019, with 1 month of sales tax data to come forward. And if the trend continues, we'll exceed that by twofold, maybe threefold. So we're doing great. When we look at the percentages, we are 5.5% above our budget year-to-date comparison, and nearly 5% above our 2018 actual collections. So sales tax is continuing to remain strong.
That's good.
And we got a whole month left to go, which is really going to push up those numbers the last month.
Wonderful.
Yeah. REIT is also doing really well. We were nervous about that with all the moratorium, but we are currently 65% of our biennial budget, so it means we've eclipsed our 2019 target and are now working on some of our 2020 target. We've collected $916,000. Again, for the biennial period, we budgeted $1.4 million, so just $500,000 short of our biennial target, and we still have a whole year to go.
So I think about 90 to 120 days from now, we'll see all of those houses sell that are being built right now. It takes 3-4 months to build a house. Yeah. Maybe a little longer in the wintertime. But
yeah, so again, we're doing great. Nearly almost 12% compared to 2018 when we look at 2019. So again, great news as we move into 2020. Our two significant revenue sources are remaining strong.
That's great news.
We can turn and look at the cash and investment summary. I sent out this morning our monthly budget report. So this will again just reiterate what you have already received. But you should take from that monthly budget report, again, all the revenues are remaining strong. Our expenditures are being well managed by our departments and are remaining within budget authority. And so we are ending with healthy fund balances for 2019 as we go into 2020. You'll also notice, in particular, I want to point out, with the last budget amendment, we requested additional expenditure authority to close Fund 401 and 403. And so now you can see that there's actually zero balances in the Fund 401 and 403. We have now transferred those monies to our appropriate 411 operating water fund and our 431 sewer operating fund, as well as our water capital fund 413 and 433. So those balances shifted as we discussed during the budget process, and now we can actually close 401, 403. So we're getting to where we want to be, to have a clean, uniform, transparent reporting for our enterprise funds structure. So that's great. We're finally getting there as we work into 2020.
When do we anticipate Tremont will close?
We have a meeting this week, I believe.
officially, well, I mean, we're close, and we're probably got about $80,000 in expenditures. We still have to pay them. We don't have all the documentation to support that, and then everybody in Olympia's got to bless it, and federal programs and everybody. So we're pretty comfortable with the number that it is, but we have to have the supporting documentation, and then that'll at least get the doggone trailer out of up there and the fence down. Then we still have the landscape maintenance that the landscaping company is responsible for, and that will run through about midsummer when we actually accepted the project. So the real closeout won't happen until next fall, but the construction aspect of it, we were hoping to get it done by the end of the year, but I don't know that we will. There's probably there might be one more closeout document coming
But we're
before
not
the council.
anticipating any major expense out of it or surprises. It's pretty
There's
clean at
a
this
meeting
point.
this week, I believe, to reconcile that last change order. And so I'm hoping that where we're sitting here mid-December, I'm hoping we agree and actually receive that final invoice for all the construction costs,
Okay.
so we can book those expenses against our 2019 budget.
Right.
So from a financial
That was
perspective,
what I
we will
was-
be closed out with
Right.
some minor activity
Right.
continuing in 2020. But I'd like to have the bulk of the project
Yeah.
completed. Although we do have the budget authority that continues into 2020, it's just
Right.
nicer to have it all cleaned up in 2019.
Yeah.
So maybe by the end of the first quarter, we'll have had the opportunity to close out, meet with TIB, go through and reconcile Lake County, make sure we know where all the proceeds came from, that we've spent all the grant proceeds, and then we know what our balances are on the bond proceeds and anything else are remaining. So there will be some activities we'll do, needing to do probably in March, budget adjustment, maybe budget amendment to move some money around once we reconcile.
So
But-
we're spending all the grant dollars first.
Yes, that was our entire goal, spend the grant money
Right.
first, and we've done that with all the federal stuff, and I believe we've done that with the TIB, which was a big push. And again, our caveat is, while we've spent it, we feel we've spent it appropriately, we won't know until TIB comes and audits and agrees with us. We've, every time we've requested grant money from them, we've said, hey, here's what we have, here's our invoices, do you agree these are the right expenses, appropriate, and, because we don't want to have to pay it back.
Approving on an ongoing
Yes,
basis, but
yes.
it's still the final number.
Exactly. So we've been trying to document that to make sure that when they come to audit, we say, well, you guys approved
Yeah,
this.
you already approved this
Yeah,
once.
so-
Yeah.
What's changed?
Yeah.
So we're keeping our fingers hopefully crossed, and
Good.
it's all going to work out. So really good news on the fund balances. Very pleased. You'll see the general fund, the current expense fund, really healthy at $6.2 million. Again, a reflection of positive sales tax revenue coming in there, and property tax being strong, as well as our departments managing their budgets and keeping it below our targets. So great job by the departments.
So it's a stabilization fund. That looks good too.
Yeah. So, and again, what you'll see in this last month, we will make the final transfers from our ER&R, and so you'll see some fund balance go down on the current expense, but not as much as I thought when I looked today. I think it was about $750,000 worth of general fund transfers remaining, which still takes us back to about $5.5 million in general fund, which is well exceeds our operational cash flow. There are some other transfers that we've approved in the budget for 2020 that are still in the current expense. We talked about the stabilization, for example,
Right.
the increase in stabilization, so that's another $1 million. But again, not going to make those transfers until later in 2020. So there's some things that will impact that fund balance, but nothing that we haven't already planned for. So I don't see a huge drop in that fund balance until we actually pull the trigger on some of these transfers.
I think the key is what we plan for.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other point, the other fund I want to point out is the city street fund. Again, that was one we've been cautious about as we budgeted. And again, it's looking really healthy and strong. So I'm very pleased with about that, because even with that fund, we have budgeted $840,000 of transfers to come from the general fund, the current expense fund, to the street fund. And I have not made those transfers yet because we haven't needed to. I generally make those transfers on an as-needed basis as we're kind of watching the operations. And with that, $700,000 I felt is pretty strong. So as we get into 2020, if it continues to remain strong, we might choose to transfer a significant portion of that to strengthen our street fund, current fund balance, as we go forward and have those additional needs. But I think that's a topic we'll broach in 2020.
And related to transportation too, what we've heard is that the $976, the car tab dollars, we're going to receive them. I don't believe we're responsible for knowing who gave us the individual dollars, because they come in a lump sum to us. But
That's the state's responsibility.
that's the state's responsibility, is my understanding also. But we could, depending on the outcome, be required to give that money back. So no one I've discussed this whole
Which part give back?
the $30. We have our $20 card. We have our $20 card tab.
Correct.
We're going to continue to receive that money.
And so we're talking about giving back from
We're
a period of time and not the whole time we've had these
No.
meetings.
we're talking about, so the money's going to continue to flow to the city. What we've talked about is we're going to hold that money set aside. So once all the lawsuits are settled, and if for some reason we do owe that back to our citizens, we have that pot set aside, and we'll work with the state to do that.
Okay.
That would be the refund he's talking about.
Okay, so that's after the,
It's after it's all settled and we know the.
but it's money that we've collected from the time
Correct.
I-976
December
passed, or was
December
effective.
effective date. It was December 4th or
Okay,
5th.
okay,
Yeah,
I
and-
concur with that.
And so we will identify, I think we said that bill impacts revenue coming into the city as of March, February, March.
February or
I'll check
March.
what,
Okay.
because the current money coming in is still from previous
This
months.
months, okay.
Yeah, so there's a trickle effect, just like
Right.
with sales tax, there's a trickle effect with TBD. So there is a line in the sand that after March, I believe,
Okay.
this money is part of the lawsuit.
Okay.
So we're gonna set that aside, hold it until it's all settled. And if we get to keep it, great. So for that.
Right.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, only from the standpoint is that, Christine Rolfes, for example, said that her thought is that the Senate is going to honor the vote, which would then change car tabs to $30, regardless of the outcome of the initiative.
Right.
So that's something that could stop the flow of the funds. And then the question is there any reason to determine whether this initiative is constitutional or not? I mean, the effects of it has been implemented by the Senate. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
She's one of many.
Well, she is one of many, but, the two transportation committee chairs have also made similar kind of statements, so.
When I met with our delegation, I met with two of the three, and I just, I recognize you guys will probably do something, and then they're saying there's no appetite for to even talk about a package right now. It's a short session, and I said, well, it would be nice. I understand the whole mess with Pierce County and the valuations. I said it'd be nice if the local transportation, our piece got left alone. I just they non-committal. That was just the message I was delivering. Is it'd be nice if the local piece got left alone. So,
Yeah,
we'll see.
I mean, the legislature enacted the $30 car tax was $6.95, and it was ruled unconstitutional as well. So,
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah.
Time will tell.
okay.
So we've asked the chief to come talk about, I have it here, just sergeants. I guess I should have came up with a better title than that. But
And this is on your agenda tonight.
Yeah.
I
agenda.
read that you want to change one patrolman to a sergeant.
Yes.
It costs us $17,500.
Yes. Yes, it will. So one of the things that we'll discuss in January will be the results of our assessment through WASPIC. One of the major issues that came up was some supervision or lack of supervision, and this is one way that we can do that swiftly for relatively low cost. We can change that position to a supervisor's position. That still leaves us with an open officer's position. With the civil service rules that we did get in effect today, we can start recruiting for that position in January. And I've already reached out to those who would be able to do an assessment for us for sergeant, and we could get that process done by June. I know it's in the middle of the budget for this type of ask, but I mean, this is a fairly significant piece of what we need to really address downstairs.
Okay, explain that to me again. You have 18 officers now and 3 sergeants.
Yep.
And you're asking us to go to 17 officers and 4 sergeants.
Yep.
Are you going to ask for another officer?
Not this year, no.
So really, the sergeants.
I mean, that's the way I read it, but what you just said, I thought I heard you were going to.
So what is happening though? Our sergeants are still patrol officers. They're still out working the street.
Okay.
They're just going to have the ability. So what's with our current, years ago, and under Al Townsend's directions, we were taking a lot of laterals, and now our current practice has been hiring new, green people that have never been a police officer before, and they need a different level of supervision.
Yeah, I have no question about that.
Yeah.
It's just the way
Yes.
you said it, I thought you were. Are you going to take a current officer
Yes.
and elevate them?
Yes.
And then we will need to replace them
Yes.
on our force. That's why you will need to bring on another.
You're not quite right, because
Okay.
all we're doing is we already have an open position,
Right.
and we're trying
Right.
to fill that, and that's independent of this.
Okay.
One
that
of
was the question.
current
Okay.
patrol people will test.
Right.
There'll be a test.
Right.
And that position
Right.
will get elevated.
Okay,
And
so
not adding to.
Right, but we still need to replace that one that we don't have right now.
Yes,
Correct.
Okay, that was the piece I missed. Okay.
And then, based on your comment, I guess the natural assumption is with the next round of budgets, you'll be looking to add another patrolman to fill that.
Well, I mean, that's a larger discussion
Right,
outside
right.
of this, but I mean, I think
That's your, kind of your plan of attack.
Not sharing. He's got a whole presentation. We've got a fairly thick report, and the retreat. The chief's going to give you an executive summary of that, and a sneak preview to that. Is there's more levels to this supervision that should be happening. It should be sergeants and corporals, and it's the existing bodies, but having additional layers of rank and supervision.
Well, the key is additional bodies or current bodies. I mean, obviously with more rank comes more money, but are we creating?
At this
yet
point,
another-
no.
Okay.
Probably.
We could deal with that. in the
Probably
budget.
later.
yeah, and
I'm just more curious based on your comment.
well, and part just so you, and again, I don't want to take away from what I'm trying to show you.
No, I understand.
Whiz bang in January. So the way that it currently is set up, in fact, you and I had this conversation before you hired me, is we have a day shift, a swing shift, and a graveyard sergeant.
Right.
That works if it was a Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 system, and it's not. If we just look at the coverage that we currently have, and no one takes a day off, and no one goes to training, we only have supervision 2/3 of the time, so 66% of the entire week we have supervision. By adding this one sergeant, again, assuming nobody's going to take any time off, we're at 82%. And we need to get to 24/7. And the structure of a police department, the chief and the deputy chief and any other command staff, those aren't really first-line supervisors. We had an experience where the deputy chief went to the opening of the opioid clinic, and I went to another meeting, and we would not have been available because we're doing the other aspects that you guys have asked us to do. And so that's what we're trying to get to right now.
That makes sense, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, no problem. I'll answer
I'll look forward to your presentation.
And part of this
Hopefully- I hope I do
presentation too will be here's what our org chart looks like in the police department, and here's the roadmap where we should be, and which I think is going to be a tool that we want to implement with the other body of work, with the salary survey and the organizational structure look that we're going to hire a consultant with, and hopefully in the first quarter of next year.
Sounds good.
So the immediate ask is to promote somebody within to get us more coverage. There's likely going to be another ask in the next budget to probably add another sergeant.
Well, I think the way it was presented is correct. You're
Correct.
eliminating the
Right.
patrolman, creating a
Right.
sergeant.
But you
The
still have
sergeant will
to,
come from the patrolman ranks, but
Yeah.
you still
Yes.
have to fill that patrolman.
Yeah, you need a backfill.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
does the patrolman that we hire will have to go to training? So even if we hired them in January, they probably wouldn't be working for us till what, June?
Oh, no,
January
probably
the next year.
Probably 18 months from date of. So when we there's a process that they have to go through, and that takes several months, and then we gather up the however many applicants that we would like to send to the oral board, and then from the oral board we'll shave that down a little bit, and then we'll give chiefs interviews, and even if we say we're going to give 4 people chiefs interviews and we want to give all 4 of you the opportunity to go through background, I will probably, maybe if I'm lucky, get 1 person out of that background. And that's a long process in itself. And then we hire them. The academy is backed up. I mean, when we hired Austin, we hired him in August and he started the academy beginning of November. So you're looking about 18 months from the time we say go.
so what did they do between August and November?
So we didn't lose
Make
Austin.
coffee?
He was doing filing, and he was helping out in the detective's office and riding with people, and because otherwise somebody else is going to do that.
Take him. Well, yeah, but
He's getting to know his city, getting to know his department,
Yeah.
and working administratively for the department. Feeling
Are
that
you in
he-
marketing?
It actually, well, no, but he's correct in that we don't just say, hey, just watch YouTube videos. I mean, it's about building
Right.
relationships with the people that we're going to train with and work with, and
Sure.
you know,
so what type of training will the sergeant need?
So the sergeant will receive, by state law, they have to go to a 40-hour first line supervision course that's through CJTC, and then they have 80 hours of additional training that they have to go through, and there's, I think, 5 or 6 categories that they have to go through within the first 12 months of being hired. And then what we are working on right now, just didn't have to give away all of my presentation, is some in-service training, but also professional development. So there is a school through FBI LEDA. It's 3 weeks total, but what we're tasking the sergeants with is over the next 3 years that they achieve that 3-week trilogy of leadership courses. Kind of some succession planning, but also, I mean, you guys know, I mean, leadership is, it's a skill. You got to hone that skill. You can't just say, you have charisma, good luck.
So once you go through you select who's going to be the sergeant, until they're really an active sergeant is
Status quo.
So one of the things
6 months. I mean,
yeah. So when I call we go through public safety testing. I've done an assessment center with them. With every agency I've been with the exception of Pierce County because they didn't exist at the time. We're probably going to have 8 or more people put in for this position. As soon as we can get it is June. So what I've asked the sergeant is, yeah, if we could pull the trigger on it in January, we would. So what I've asked the sergeants is, once this announcement goes out and we find out who's interested, please identify someone who has the skill sets but is not interested, and I have the ability to step someone up temporarily for 6 months.
okay,
And that's what we'll probably do, at least so that we have that base of supervision.
right.
And I
It's
guess
just there's such a long lead time
Yeah.
for any of this.
Correct.
And that's what I said, and I guess that's why when the chief brought this forward, we said, let's get this to the Finance Committee and Council sooner than later.
Yeah.
Normally we'd say, hey, let's wait on the personnel issues, but because there is such a long lag time before we actually get the person on the job, so let's get them in here in December, because it's still going to take another, right? Otherwise it would be till August before they get on the job.
Or next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And the one thing to address too, thank you. So the civil service issue, that's one of the things that we're working on too. So we did get permission to go ahead and start the process as long as by the time we get to the assessment center, those rules are in place with civil service. So we have 6 months where we can work with people.
And that's where the question of seniority came in.
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I got a few housekeeping issues I'd like to. So I gave you. This is what Mark and I and Noah have been working on for what we believe is the scope of the things we want to consider for our city hall improvements. So I just tossing it out there. If there's something you're adamantly against or you think I'm missing, let us know. And we're just developing an RFP to go out so that we can capture what we're believing is everything. This will come together in the form of bid specs that will be, we can do it in a package or it'll be individual, and we'll be able to, this will be part of our next budget process, but we're just trying to get the groundwork laid ahead of time so we know what the scope is and what it is, the elements, so that we can do it piecemeal or as a package. We're paying off the mortgage, the bond issuance this year. I think it's logical that we do
This year as in 19 or 20?
in 19.
Yep.
And
The payment
so,
was this month.
so it might be in 2021. I mean, so we're going to have a year without payments. The beauty of having debt service is that we can charge a portion of City Hall back to the enterprise funds, because those employees from the enterprise funds are housed here, and that's what we have historically done versus trying to pay for these improvements solely out of REIT or our general fund. So,
And so these, everything that's on this list, you've extracted from the work that Steve Rice
we did a body of work,
Right.
and then talking to Mark and other staff about
Right.
What things.
I just wanted to make sure that the work we paid for was captured here.
Yes, it is. And that's where I came up with, the LED lighting and the solar panel, that we should be considering solar panels, the heating system, and so on and so forth. I mean, it's apparent around here that the heating system doesn't work right, but we've got a consultant report that says that too. And the
Okay,
windows
do we
are bad.
have anything here on?
Windows don't stop air.
Yeah, just a second. do we have our lock issue on here? Didn't we want to
That's
do
on,
something with
that's
the lock?
on security upgrades, but we
Okay.
also have that, we're close to having those proposals, where I think we'll have 2 or 3 of them. We've had a number of consultants walking through the building. Don't know whether that, we've got some money, we'd like to do that sooner versus later, but if it's too large, then it's got a placeholder in here, and we'll fold it into this. Just informational.
Okay.
Got this letter today from the Rotary Club. I'll share it with Noah and Mark. It's their commitment. We put $25,000 in the budget for Etta Turner Park. It's their commitment, letter of commitment for the $15,000, and they're applying for a grant. And regardless whether they get the grant or not,
Yeah.
they're going to come up with
So
their
this is
portion.
for the power upgrades and all.
The lighting upgrades on the bridge and the street, replacing the street lights, yeah, power and lighting. So that's that. I just got that today. We're gonna pull the master plan tonight. Mark and Nick
Okay.
just couldn't come to an agreement.
Okay.
Right now we're there at 225. We wanted to be 200 or less. At one point they had said we should be able to get this at 175. That was a number I shared with you. They wanted us to split the difference, and then continue to work on the scope. We're comfortable with that. We want the scope defined before we agree to a price. So we're going to pull it tonight and hopefully bring that back January 17th.
Okay.
We still want to move forward with it. We just want to have a defined scope. That's all I have.
Do we want to have any more conversation about the Navigator program?
Told me last time.
Yeah, I
Okay.
was gonna say.
Yeah, so there's going to be a fairly large contingent of people that are here supporting that. And,
Okay.
there's a short
Well, that's
presentation. Yeah. So,
And seeing that this is the last meeting of the year, is there any thoughts or suggestions you guys want to start thinking about for next year to incorporate in our finance committee meetings? Are you happy with how we're handling it? Anything you'd like to see changed?
I'd have to think about it more.
Okay.
It's nothing right off the top of my head jumps out, so.
And then I guess pose the same question with the monthly budget report. Is there anything on that you'd like to see added? Take away?
What- Just what John said, we need to think about it a little
Yeah.
bit, but I do appreciate the fact that you're sending out some financial information to the entire council. So they all have it. It's not just
Yeah.
held with the 3 of us, whether they read it or don't,
It's
but
up
they
to them.
have it.
Right.
Yeah, I appreciate that a
Yeah.
lot. I think you've made great strides in communication with all of us. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Good.
Okay.
Anything for the good of the order? We are adjourned.
Yeah.
So someone has to remind me